Part 70. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 691. Chapter 691 Crystal Pinecone. Xiaoling's expression was not serious, but rather angry. No matter how stupid she was, she understood that there was something else in Su Tang's words. This was a woman's intuition and had nothing to do with IQ. She let go of Xiao Hui's hand and walked inside. Xiaowei quickly raised his voice and said, "Sister, sister, I'm here to find you. I'm going to tell you that the crystal pine cone must have fallen in the store." The voice of a very lively child was filled with a clear smile. The people in the store realized that someone was coming. Everyone turned to look at Xiaoling. At this time, Xiaoling had calmed down the anger in her expression, and said calmly, "I'll find something for Xiaohui, you can do whatever you want." At the moment when Xiaohui was yelling, she suddenly realized that if she was so angry, he rushed forward to argue with the reporter and Su Tang, which only made him look immodest, while making Su Tang look more elegant. It was so dangerous. If Xiaohui hadn't made a mistake, she would have almost made such a stupid mistake. She looked at Su Tang with a half smile. It seems that Assistant Su is really not in a hurry. After waiting for so long, he doesn't want to hurry up and make clothes. He is still in the mood to chat with reporters. Su Tang said, "Reporter Sun came all the way here, so we can't let people run away in vain." Outside, full of consideration. Reporter Sun was immediately moved. Nowadays, there are not many interviewees as good as Su Tang. He was determined to report well and write out all the grievances suffered by Ms. Su. Thinking of this, she became hostile towards Xiaoling. "Miss Ye, you know that Ms. Su has been waiting for so long, why don't you make the clothes faster? Is it because of the recent news that you deliberately targeted her?" "Targeted?" Xiaoling sneered, as if she had heard the funniest joke in the world. "Why should I target her? For Li Lei? That man and I broke up 800 years ago. Even if I want to give Xiao, if Hui wants to find a father, he must also find a competent father. He cannot raise his child to be disabled." Reporter Sun caught something keenly. "You mean, Li Rui was disabled?" The surrounding shop assistants took a breath. This Miss Ye is indeed a queen-level figure. She is so arrogant that she dares to offend anyone. "Isn't it?" Xiaoling sneered again. "Not to mention anything else, the last time I held a social banquet for Xiaohui, all the children could play together, but Li Rui was the only one who was not gregarious and so withdrawn." Su Tang finally couldn't hold back the elegant look on her face. "Miss Ye, please pay attention to your wording." Xiaoling met her gaze without fear. Su Tang has been a special assistant all his life, and his thinking and skills are top-notch. He is very good at concealing cleverness in his words. However, when he encounters Xiaoling, who is so direct in scolding, she is a little overwhelmed. She felt that she had to stand up and protect her children. Xiao Rui was obviously isolated that day. He had just returned to China and was unfamiliar with the place. However, as the host, Xiaowei not only failed to serve the guests well as a landlord, but also, is it really okay to lead other children against Xiao Rui? The reporter quickly wrote down something on the paper. Xiaoling laughed and was very proud. "The children present that day all come from rich or noble families. Do you think they are all little idiots without independent opinions? Xiao Hui can incite them if he wants to. Those children are all. If you don't like Li Rui, you should really look for the reasons within yourself and see how you teach your children." Su Tang was so angry that he choked, since he didn't know how to reply. Xiao Hui said cutely, Xiao Rui, let me tell you, it's easy to make other children like you, as long as you don't break their toys, don't laugh at them, don't make them cry, that's it." Lay on the sidelines, many onlookers who were unaware at first suddenly realized. It turns out that at the banquet held for Xiao Hui, Li Rui bullied other children. There was some disdain in their expressions. To be honest, Li Rui is really not as cute as the cute Xiaowai. Xiaowai smiles when everyone meets him and has a sweet mouth. Unlike Li Rui, who always has a disgusting face and looks down on people with his eyes on the top of his head. Just thinking about it, Li Rui was really stimulated by Xiao Hui again, and said angrily, "You don't want to worry about my affairs." Xiao Rui, Su Tang stopped him and showed a forbearing look. She always knew when to act weak and said to Xiaoling slowly and softly, "Ms. Yeah, these are all old things. You are biased against our Xiao Rui. Let the two children get along with each other more someday. After a while, you will change." What she said was very sensible, like a mother who takes the overall situation into consideration. She is completely noble and elegant, and she doesn't bother to care about the people who have splashed dirty water on her. Xiaoling, however, was completely aloof. "I'm sorry, I don't want Xiao Hui to have a bad temper." Su Tang hesitated to speak, seeming to hold back the grievance in his heart. Reporter Sun looked angrily from the side. "This is the Queen of Heaven bullying people." He decided to help Su Tang. "Miss Ye, are you really innocent between you and Mr. Li?" Xiaoling sneered, "Sorry, I am taking my children out to buy clothes today and will not be interviewed." Want to trick her? How can it be that easy? She has faced reporters for so many years and has long known how to deal with them. He looked down at Xiao Hui and his voice softened, "Little Xiaowai, quickly find where your crystal pine cone is. We will leave when you grow up." Xiao Hui responded and looked around. After searching for a while, he suddenly raised his head and said to reporter Sun, "Brother, have you seen my crystal pine cone? I've been looking for it for a long time and haven't found it yet. This child is very cute, soft, and lovable." Even if reporter Sun doesn't like Xiaoling, he still can't dislike the cute Xiaowai. He said kindly, "I didn't see your crystal pine cone. Is that important?" "Well, it's a very important toy." Xiao Hui nodded vigorously, "Uncle Li gave it to me." "Which Uncle Li?" Reporter Sun's eyes suddenly lit up. There was gossip. Even though Xiaoling and Li Lei were so clear-eyed, this child inadvertently revealed the truth. "I'm afraid they have a very good relationship." The eyes of everyone around him were like X-rays, all directed towards Xiao Hui. Even Xiaoling's heart was in her throat, fearing that her child would say something she shouldn't have said. Xiao Hui, who was in the center of the storm, seemed unaware and still said cutely, "Uncle Li Lei gave it to me. I really like to go to his house to play with Mao, and Mao also likes me. It's a pity that my sister doesn't. I like to play with Uncle Li, and Uncle Li rarely contacts my sister. Every time, I have to beg them for a long time before I can see Mao." As he spoke, his face dropped. What if Uncle Li knows that I lost the crystal pine cone and doesn't let me play with Mao? End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 692. Chapter 692, Who does Mao like? Reporter Sun is very disappointed. He originally thought that Xiao Hui would reveal some shocking information, but he didn't expect that not only was there no explosive information, but even the ambiguity between Xiaoling and Li Lei was completely brushed aside. They reluctantly kept in touch because of their children. What kind of date, what kind of mistress is involved? It's all bullshit. Reporter Sun looked at Xiao Hui. This kid had a confused look on his face. He couldn't tell lies at first glance. Since the child said that the two adults don't often contact each other, it means they really don't contact each other very often. How can he make news? He hesitated, looked at Xiaowai, then Xiaoling and Su Tang, and asked Xiaowai unwillingly, "Is it true that Uncle Li doesn't contact your sister often?" "I heard Dad call that woman," Li Rui interrupted. Xiaowai said lightly and skillfully, "I pestered my sister to call Uncle Li and asked when I could go and play with Mao." "Why should I let you play with my Mao?" Li Rui was very angry. When reporter Sun heard this, it made sense. The Li family was rich and powerful, and they were not just a small family. Why did the children outside let them play with the Li family's pets even if they wanted to? Or, there is adultery. Xiao Hui said, Mao is very lonely. He plays with me and I play with him. He clapped his fingers and looked at reporter's son with some pride. Uncle, you don't know, Mao is very cautious. Ordinary people it doesn't let Xiao Rui get close. Uncle Li said that among so many children, I am the only one he likes. Of course I want to see him more. Yes or no? One sentence, reasonable and to the point. Xiaoling just wanted to applaud Xiao Hui. This kid, no matter what tricks the other party tried, he could turn danger into safety and turn the relationship between her and Li Lei into that of a child and a pet. Li Rui was so angry that he shouted, "Don't be proud of yourself." Looking at Li Rui's furious look, reporter Sun asked, "Young Master Rui, is it true that Mr. Li Zermao won't let you get close?" "How is that possible?" Li Rui was desperate to save face and retorted without thinking, Mao listens to me the most." Reporter Sun went to see Xiao Hui again and pondered. Unexpectedly, until now, the confusing relationship between Xiaoling, Li Lei, and Su Tang would actually end up with a leopard. If Mao is really a lonely leopard with only Xiao Hui as a friend, then Li Lei there is nothing wrong with allowing Xiao Hui to go and play with it often, and if Mao can play with others, then Xiao Hui is not necessary. If Li Lei allows him to go and see Mao, it must be for other reasons. Su Tang, who was on the side, looked at reporter Sun's face. She, who was always thoughtful, could guess what reporter Sun was thinking. She smiled calmly and said, "Xiao Rui and Mao have lived together for so many years, how can there be any bad reason for their relationship? They often play together." "You mean," Xiao Hui lied. Reporter Sun's eyes lit up. "I didn't say that," Su Tang said. "Every time Xia Wai and Miss Ye came to my house, Li Lei would ask me and Xiao Rui to avoid it." Xia Wai had never seen Xiao Rui and Mao playing, so he mistakenly thought it's normal for Mao to have only one friend. These few sentences are full of hidden meanings. Li Lei asked her to avoid them. It is enough to arouse people's imagination. This time, not only reporter Sun, but also several shop assistants and tailors who were watching looked at them with some changes in their expressions. Unexpectedly, Miss Ye, who looked delicate and pretty, was also a noble queen, but secretly she was with a man who has a master can't get involved, so he seizes love and acts as a mistress. This is really, it's so shameless. The moral balance in their hearts tilted towards Su Tang again. Xiaoling saw that the situation was not good and said, "No." Su Tang drank tea elegantly and said in a soft voice, "What is it?" "Miss Ye, the day you and Xiao Hui came to my house, Li Lei did ask me to avoid it. Later, Xiao Rui wanted to go play with Xiao Hui, but for some reason he still refused after being yelled at by Li Lei. Xiao Rui felt aggrieved and cried for a long time." Her words made everyone's associations richer. Xia Wai on the side was very unhappy. Before he left the mountain, his uncle specifically told him that his mother was a fool and his father was also a fool. The aunt named Su Tang was the smartest and asked him to be more careful about Su Tang on behalf of his parents. "Auntie." "Sure enough, now it's up to him to save the world." Thinking of this, Xiao Xia Wai stepped forward. Mao really only has my friend." He looked at reporter Sun seriously, like a child trying to protect his beloved toy. "Really? If you don't believe it, uncle, you can come with us to see Mao. He likes me so much that he doesn't care about anyone else." He said and added, "Xiao Rui, you can also go with me." Reporter Sun felt that this was a good idea. If he could see Mao with his own eyes and see his attitude towards the two children, then the problem of whether he only likes Xiao Hui or Li Rui also would be easily solved. Once this problem is solved, the question will come to light as to whether Xiao Hui went to see Mao or was a cover for Xiaoling and Li Lei's date. So reporter Sun asked Su Tang, Can you take us to see Mao? Sutang was secretly unhappy. He didn't expect that little child to be so difficult to deal with. On the surface, she still smiled. Mao doesn't like to make noises, and he is a ferocious beast after all. It would be bad if he hurt Reporter Sunday. Seeing Reporter Sun's disapproval, she added, I am separated from Lilei now. After all, it is Lilei's pet, so it would be inappropriate for me to make the decision without permission. Looking like he was wronged but still holding back. That tone made many people present feel a faint pain in their hearts. What a good woman, why is she so miserable and unable to be with the father of her child? Reporter Sun thought about it and it was the same reason. But Xiaowei said cutely, it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. I'll call Uncle Li anyway, I miss Mao. Uncle Li said that Mao is very lonely. I can go over and visit him anytime. He fearing that Sutang would stop her again, she stood up on tiptoes and tugged on Xiaoling's sleeve. Sister, please lend me your phone. Xiaoling hesitated for a moment, then took out the phone from her exquisite handbag and handed it to him. She didn't know why she trusted this child so much, but Xiao Hui seemed to have a kind of magic power that could make everything go smoothly, which was very reassuring. Xiao Hui took the phone and dialed Lilei's number. Xiaoling, Lilei was pleasantly surprised on the other end of the phone. Why did you take the initiative to call me when you were free? When Xiao Hui called, Reporter Sun leaned very close to hear what they were talking about. At this time, after hearing Lilei's surprised words, he believed Xiao Hui a little more. It seemed that Lilei did not have frequent contact with Xiaoling. There are 2 more updates tonight, very late. I think you can get up and watch it every morning from now on. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 693. Chapter 693. Lilei arrives. What Reporter Sun didn't know is that the sense of time varies from person to person. For most people, a few days without seeing each other is not a long time, but for Lilei, missing Xiaoling for 1 day is like 3 autumns, and he misses her so much. No matter when Xiaoling calls him, he will be surprised. Xiao Hui said cutely, Uncle Li, today my sister took me out to buy clothes. I met Aunt Sutang and Xiao Rui, and there was also a reporter uncle. The reporter uncle didn't believe that Mao only liked me. Can I take him with me, going to see Mao? By the way, you also need to take Xiao Rui with you. When Lilei heard the word reporter, he understood that Xiaoling was in trouble. He frowned a little. Why, since Sutang was also at the scene, he failed to explain clearly to the reporter. Could it be that the reporter is still suspicious of Xiaoling, thinking that she is the third party who destroys other people's feelings? On the phone, he couldn't ask too many questions and just said, okay, where are you? I will send a car to pick you up. Xiao Hui gave an address. Lilei asked them to wait where they were, and after a while, they actually sent a car over. He himself came over with the driver. When he arrived at the store, he saw Xiaoling, Sutang, the 2 children, and the reporter. He had a headache for a moment. What kind of mess is this? However, on the surface, he just smiled lazily. Without looking at Xiaoling, he knelt down and gave Xiao Hui a hug. Xiao Xiaowei, long time no see. Uncle Li, Xiao Hui was very happy to see him. Besides, Sutang's expression was not good. Why didn't this man care about Li Rui first and give that little a hug? Li Rui was also very jealous. Growing up, his father rarely hugged him like this. Xiaoling, on the other hand, looked at the scene in a daze. The big one and the small one in front of me are getting along so harmoniously, it's almost It's almost like a real father and son. She shook her head slightly to get rid of the unwanted thoughts in her mind. Looking at that man, I haven't seen him for a few days, but he still looks so handsome and charming, with a bright smile on his sculptured profile, as if there is no trace of haze in the world. She looked at his face with some lust, then suddenly realized that now was not the time, so she looked away. Fortunately, the reporter did not notice her. At this moment, all of reporter Sun's attention was attracted by the two people, one big and one small. He discovered that the clothes these two people were wearing were from the same brand and style. Parent-child clothes. Reporter Sun quickly searched for information in his mind. Yes, he remembered it. A few days ago, it was revealed in the news that Xiaoling took Xiao Hui to a men's clothing store and bought this brand. He seemed to have discovered a new world, and his voice changed with excitement. Mr. Li, may I ask if this dress you are wearing was given to you by Miss Yet? For a while, the whole store became quiet. Everyone was eagerly waiting for Li Lei's answer. Xiaoling secretly groaned. She had given clothes to Li Lei a few days ago, but she didn't expect him to wear them in such a grand manner today. What's even more unlucky is that Xiao Hui is also wearing the same style. Among all the clothes she bought, this is Xiao Hui's favorite. The two people have really similar tastes. Su Tang's eyes also flashed with a hint of gloom. She had known for a long time that Xiaoling gave Li Lei the clothes. However, it was one thing to know, but it was another thing to see him carelessly wearing them. Such excitement drove her almost crazy. She clenched her fingers tightly, wishing that the reporter would ask more sharply and call that shameless. Li Lei sensed something was wrong in the atmosphere. However, he looked at reporter Sun with a smile as if nothing was wrong. What did you say? Xiaoling gave it to me. He seemed to have heard the funniest joke in the world and glanced sideways at Xiaoling. What are you talking about? Have you given me clothes before? He put Xiao Hui down and stood up to face the reporter. I have been wearing this brand for more than 10 years. This sentence is not random. Li Lei has always liked simple and comfortable clothes and has always worn this brand. When Xiaoling bought him clothes, she bought them according to what he usually wore. Reporter Sun was stunned. He was so excited just now, but he didn't expect this. Although he couldn't recall the boss's usual dressing style at the moment, since the boss said he always wore this brand, it would not be a lie, because such a clumsy lie can be easily exposed. While he was stunned for a moment, Xiao Hui also spoke. Yes, Uncle Li looks very handsome wearing this brand of clothes, so I pestered my sister to take me to buy a lot of them. As he said that, he turned around. Circle, a bit like showing off. Look, am I also handsome? Xiaoling was amused by him and laughed. Little smelly. Xiao Hui puffed out his baby fat cheeks and smiled confusedly. Su Tang choked up in his heart and couldn't bring it up. It was clearly Xiaoling who gave Li Lei the clothes, so why were they able to get over it with just a few words? She fully hoped that reporter Sun's fighting ability would be stronger and continued to raise questions. However, reporter Sun had obviously believed their statement and would not pursue further. I took the liberty, he said sarcastically. Although journalists must be sharp and powerful, I don't know why, in front of Big Boss Li, reporter Sun couldn't gain momentum. Although the man smiled warmly, there seemed to be a faint pressure on him that made people dare not believe his words. This is the majesty that comes from being in a high position for a long time. Li Lei was still smiling and touched Xiao Hui's head. Didn't you say you want to go to my place to see Mao? Let's go. Taking Xiao Hui with him, he turned around and walked out first. The others looked at each other a few times and all looked at each other. Follow up. Li Lei sent a business car. It was very big, and there was still room for everyone to sit in it. Reporter Sun felt that he was extremely happy today. He just accidentally got the news that Su Tang was shopping in the mall, and he was thinking about interviewing Su Tang. However, he did not expect that in addition to Su Tang, he could also interview Li Lei, and Xiaoling even has 2 children. Now, all the parties involved are here. He made up his mind to restore the truth of the matter with the blessing of the god of luck. It was very quiet in the carriage. Xiaoling was sitting in the back seat of the car, with Xiao Hui beside her and some distance away from Li Lei. Su Tang originally wanted to sit next to Li Lei, but was blocked by Li Lei without any trace. Li Lei said to reporter Sun, "This gentleman looks strange. I wonder where he usually does news." A very kind tone. Reporter Sun was flattered and quickly replied, "It's mainly for the entertainment industry. Boss Li, you have many things to do. You rarely appear on the front line of the entertainment industry. It's normal that you haven't seen me." The two started chatting naturally, and reporter Sun immediately sat next to Li Lei. Su Tang was so angry that he gritted his teeth again and took Li Rui to sit down not far from Xiaoling. Xiaoling looked at it coldly, and her mood suddenly became better. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weiniang. Chapter 694. Chapter 694 Visiting Ermao. The car drove to the downstairs of Li Lei's apartment and stopped. Li Lei took everyone upstairs on the special staircase and opened the apartment door. What comes into view is a very spacious space. The floor-to-ceiling windows on the entire wall provide excellent lighting, giving a panoramic view of half of the city. The interior is covered with soft and thick carpets, and the furniture is made of logs and marble. The overall decoration is black and white and gray, which looks simple and tough, which suits his status as a single boss. Reporter Sun took a quick look and found no trace of a woman. I couldn't help but start to believe that Boss Li and Su Tang really broke up because they had no relationship. Regardless of the third party's affairs, Boss Li seemed to be single. While thinking this, a leopard walked out. It was a very strong leopard, covered with gorgeous rose-colored markings, slowly approaching the crowd with elegant steps, and its amber inorganic eyes looked dangerous and cold. Reporter Sun was so frightened that he took a step back. Li Lei chuckled, "Don't be afraid, Ermao won't hurt you." Reporter Sun's legs were still weak. This was the first time he had faced a ferocious beast at close range without any precautions. His heart was screaming, wasn't it that Ermao was a pet leopard? Why can a pet leopard be so powerful? Is this more terrifying than many ferocious beasts in zoos? His face turned pale and he was speechless. Li Lei ordered Ermao to take a few steps back, and Ermao obediently lay down in the corner. "It's okay," he said to reporter Sun with a lazy smile, "if you're not at ease, you can leave first." Leave? Joke. Seeing the news right in front of him, how could he flinch? In an instant, the ethics of journalists prevailed. "We have come to this point, and there is no reason to go back." Reporter Sun mustered up his courage and spoke with some trembling, I don't mind, your pet is really powerful, ha, ha, ha." After saying a few words, the shaking stopped. Li Lei invited him to sit down and went to the kitchen to pour a few glasses of water for everyone. Reporter Sun held the water glass and calmed down. He looked at the large beast lying obediently in the corner. Now he believed it. No wonder Xiao Hui said that Ermao has no friends. Damn it, who dares to be friends with it? I saw little Xiao Hui waddling towards Ermao. As he walked, he said, Ermao, I'm here to see you. Have you missed me?" His little hands were about to fall on the leopard. Reporter Sun couldn't help but exclaimed, "Isn't this too dangerous? You know, this kid is facing a ferocious beast. If it is angered, one bite will kill you." He instinctively shouted, "Be careful." However, Xiao Hui has already pounced on him. Unexpectedly, the leopard was not angry. Instead, it rubbed its huge head against Xiao Hui's body very affectionately. The child was amused and giggled, "I knew you would miss me." After playing with the leopard for a while, he turned around and greeted Li Rui, who was not far away with a calm face, "Xiaorui, do you want to come with us?" "Play." Li Rui's face turned dark. "Why is this Yeshaya? Why not opening any pot?" It was too late for him to hide from Ermao. That leopard is so crazy that he never liked his real master. Instead, he acted coquettishly and cutely toward a wild child of unknown origin. Li Rui was very angry, but Haikao had already collapsed before, saying that Ermao listened to him the most, and now he was frozen there, in a dilemma. Reporter Sun turned to look at Li Rui. Now it has been proved that Xiao Hui and Mao have a good relationship. What about Li Rui? Is Li Rui really in a good relationship with Mao, or is he lying? "Young Master Rui, Xiao Hui asked you to play together," Reporter Sun urged. Li Rui glared at him fiercely. "If he asks me to go play, will I go? I won't." Humph! He sat down on the sofa with disdain on his face. Xiaoling looked at this naughty kid with interest and said lukewarmly, "Didn't Xiao Rui say that she and Mao have a very good relationship? Why, you don't dare to come forward." She was not as particular as Sutang. She has to beat around the bush when criticizing someone, but she is very direct, and she will be sarcastic when she doesn't like anyone. Li Rui glared at her fiercely this time. "You woman, why are you so annoying?" "Xiao Rui, don't be rude." Li Lei lowered his voice. Li Rui was very angry and yelled, "I'm going to be rude to her. Why did she come to destroy my home? Oh, 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 she brought such a nasty child to steal my 2 cents. In Li Rui, in his concept, everything that belongs to his father belongs to him, so Ermao also belongs to him, even though he doesn't like Ermao, and Ermao doesn't like him either. The thunder is about to break out. Xiao Hui had already said first, "I didn't steal your 2 cents, Xiao Rui. You didn't come to play on your own. How about you come over and play with me?" His voice was soft and waxy, and he was also 4 or 5 years old. The older boy speaks much better than Li Rui, making people want to listen to him for a while longer. Li Rui became even more irritable. "I won't play with you." Xiao Hui seemed a little sad. "Are you afraid of Ermao?" "I'm not afraid of that dead leopard," Li Rui yelled. Xiao Hui blinked his eyes and said in a very cute manner, "Come and play if you're not afraid, otherwise I'd think you wouldn't dare to play with Mao." Li Rui was so excited that he almost lost his mind. He took a few steps and rushed forward. "Let's play." "Am I afraid of you?" He was so aggressive that he forgot that Mao had always disliked him. Seeing him rushing forward, he suddenly arched his body and roared violently at him. Li Rui was startled and sat down on the ground. The terrifying face of the beast enlarged in front of his eyes, and a pair of amber inorganic eyes stared at him coldly, as if staring at a plate of lifeless dead things. Li Rui felt hot all over his body, and a foul smell came out. Xiao Hui opened his eyes wide. He didn't expect Li Rui to be so timid and was so scared that he peed his pants. He frowned and took Mao back a few steps. Mao looked back at his little master, became docile again, and walked to the corner to lie down. It originally didn't want to scare that naughty kid Li Rui. On weekdays, it always ignored Li Rui. However, this time it was different. Li Rui dared to get angry at its little master. It was really unreasonable. Mao felt that it was necessary for him to protect his little master, and he must give some color to those who offended him, so that they would not dare to do it again next time. Therefore, it was particularly ferocious just now, and the beast's power was unleashed, frightening Li Rui. Li Rui was still slumped on the ground. The small puddle under him was dirty and smelly, but he couldn't care less. He was stunned for a long time, and suddenly he cried loudly. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 695. Chapter 695. Who is stupid? The child's cry was earth-shattering. Reporter's son was stunned when he looked at the scene in front of him. It seems that this Li Rui is indeed afraid of Mao, and is very afraid. A child who spends day and night with his own pet can be so scared that he wets his pants. Should this be said that the pet is too ferocious, or that the child is too cowardly? Reporter's son shook his head secretly. This Li Rui really didn't look like he was the biological son of Big Boss Li. Over there, Xiao Hui asked with concern, Xiao Rui, are you okay? Just say it if you're afraid of Mao. It's not a shameful thing. It's embarrassing to be so scared that you peed your pants. Go and change clothes quickly. Well, so many uncles and aunts are watching, I feel so embarrassed. The child's innocent words made Li Rui cry even harder. The living room was in chaos, Li Rui was crying, Xiao Hui seemed to be trying to dissuade him, Mao was lying lazily and irrelevantly, Xiaoling covered her mouth and nose and retreated without leaving a trace, while Sutang was frozen in place and was in a dilemma. Logically, Sutang is the mother of the child and should step forward to help the child at this time, but she also dislikes that the child is too dirty. Normally, the nanny does all these things, pooping and peeing. She is so elegant and simple, how can she bear this? Li Lei frowned slightly and looked at this mess. Reporter's son, I made you laugh, he said to Reporter's son in a somewhat calm tone. I originally wanted to keep you sitting for a while, but the living room is so dirty that it is not suitable to continue to have guests. Reporter's son, who has been running news outside all year round, is very good at observing people's words. He heard the implication of Li Lei's words, so he stood up, then I won't disturb you. I will visit you another day, although he only stayed in this world for such a short time before leaving. It was a bit regretful, but he had gotten the news he wanted. Mao really only liked Xiao Hui, a child. It seemed that the reason why Yexin Ling was in contact with Li Lei on weekdays was also for the sake of the child. The relationship between the two of them is innocent, and there is no suggestion that a mistress is involved. Reporter's son said goodbye while thinking about how to compile this conclusion into a document when he went back. Sent reporter's son off, Li Lei closed the door. The living room was still in chaos, and Li Rui continued to howl. The thing that Xiaoling can't stand the most is the magic sound piercing her brain. She has retreated to the farthest place from Li Rui, and Sutang has also retreated very far. This child is too dirty, and she can't stand it. Only Xiao Shaowai circled around Li Rui. What should I do? Stop crying. My uncle said that men can't cry. Xiao Rui, get up quickly. I'll accompany you to change clothes. Okay, Shaowai. Although he didn't like Li Rui very much, there was no deep hatred between the two. Seeing Li Rui cry so miserably, he couldn't bear it and wanted to help him. Helpless, we are small and have little strength, so we don't know how to help. Li Lei pulled Xiao Shaowai a few steps away and said softly, let me come. He walked up to Li Rui and knelt down. Regardless of the dirt and smell all over him, he picked up the child and said, Daddy will take you to take a bath, he said. Although the child was not his own, his heart was full of guilt for Sutang's sacrifice, and he treated the child as if he were his own. Seeing that someone finally paid attention to him, Li Rui hugged Li Lei and cried until he was hoarse. Li Lei coaxed him and walked toward the bathroom. Halfway there, he turned around and said, Xiaoling. He looked at Xiaoling, who was standing far away, and his voice was softer than before, this place is dirty, you take Xiao Hui to my bedroom and wait. I'll call the nanny to clean the living room later. He likes to do everything by himself. There is no long-term nanny in the apartment, so he has to call someone from outside. Sutang came to her senses at this time and said quickly, I'll call you. She finally remembered her identity as the child's mother and Li Lei's good wife. Why did she stand idly by while Li Lei was busy? This is so unhostess-like. Thinking of this, she smiled reluctantly at Xiaoling. Miss Ye, you'd better go sit in the tea room. Xiao Rui scared you. I'll make you a cup of tea later. I'm sorry. She had a faint host's aura. Xiaoling narrowed her eyes slightly. She originally wanted to take Xiaowei home, but after hearing what Su Tang said, she didn't want to leave. This woman had been standing between her and Li Lei. It was one thing for Xiaoling to not want Li Lei, but it was another thing for her to be provoked. Why does Su Tang consider herself the hostess? She smiled, her beautiful face blooming with brilliance, and she was so beautiful, why bother bothering Special Assistant Su? She deliberately added an accent to the word Special Assistant and saw Su Tang's slightly changed expression with satisfaction. Although Su Tang covered it up in an instant, I'd better take Xiao Hui to the bedroom. I'm a little tired and want to sleep for a while. As he said that, he turned around lightly and led Xiao Hui towards the bedroom. Su Tang was left alone, gritting his teeth in anger. That bitch, why did she go to Li Lei's bedroom? You know, even she is not allowed to enter Li Lei's bedroom. The status of the two of them in Li Lei's heart was very high. This realization made Su Tang feel like a deep hole had been opened in his heart, which made him extremely painful. However, in Li Lei's territory, it was not easy for her to deal with Xiaoling blatantly. She stood in the living room that was full of stinky smell, thought for a while, and walked towards the bathroom as if she had made up her mind. Even though Li Rui was very dirty, she could endure it just to stay close to Li Lei for a while. She walked to the bathroom and said to Li Lei, "Let me give the child a bath." Sure enough, Li Lei said, "No, Su Tang, I've almost finished washing him." Xiao Rui is a little timid. Don't let him get close to Er Mao in the future. Su Tang bit her lip slightly, yes. How could Li Rui like to be close to Er Mao? He clearly fell into the trap of that little Xiaowei. If Xiao Hui hadn't asked him to go, he wouldn't have approached Er Mao. Su Tang said softly, "Xiao Hui is so smart and courageous. I'm afraid Xiao Rui will suffer a loss if he plays with him." Li Lei smiled and didn't take it seriously. "Xiaowei. The little guy is stupid just like his idiot sister, how can he look smart at all?" However, Xiao Rui is not very friendly to Xiaowei. You should pay more attention in the future to let the two children get along well. Su Tang originally wanted to sue Xiaowei, but unexpectedly Li Lei told him the opposite, which made her feel very blocked. She swears by a woman's intuition. How could that little Xiao Hui be stupid? But he's so smart. If Li Rui was half as smart as him, she wouldn't have to worry so much as a mother. She glanced at Li Rui unhappily. The race of the indigenous people of South Africa is the race of the indigenous people of South Africa, so stupid, uncivilized and annoying. If it weren't for Li Lei's sympathy, this child would have been thrown into the sea and drowned by her. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weiniang. Chapter 696. Chapter 696 Emergency. Xiaoling took Xiao Hui into the bedroom. This is the first time she has come here since Li Lei opened up the entire apartment. The bedroom has not changed much from when they first met a few years ago. All the utensils are still the same, but there are some more photos on the wall. There are photos of them going to the amusement park together, watching dolphins, and at the beach. Couple selfies, each one is carefully arranged and looks warm and happy. Xiaowei also looked at the photos. After a while, the child raised his head and asked Xiaoling, "Sister, were you and Uncle Li a couple before?" Xiaoling said, "It's all over." The child seemed not to have heard her words and said to himself, "These photos are so beautiful. Look at this one. Uncle Li is so careful to protect his sister and help her block the crowd. And this one, my sister is looking at the penguins, and Uncle Li is looking at my sister, this one. Children count them one by one. Xiaoling let go of his little hand and walked to the window, blowing in the cool early autumn wind. With the child's innocent words, many past events that had settled in my heart came to light. Those days were so beautiful, but at that time they were just ordinary. Now, he has Sutang and Li Rui. Even if it's fake, everything has changed. Xiaoling recalled the way he held Li Rui just now, not afraid of dirt or smell, just like a real father taking care of his child. Maybe they are more like a family. She felt a dull pain in her heart. The bedroom door was pushed open, and it was Sutang and Li Rui standing by the door, looking at her calmly. "Miss Ye," Sutang said, "thank you for coming as a guest today. It's getting late, so please come back." She looks like a hostess. Xiaoling didn't want to take her for granted and asked, "Where is Li Lei?" "Dad is taking a shower," Li Rui answered this time. "It's all your fault for making my house such a mess. You are not welcome here, so get out of here." "Xiao Rui, you can't be so rude," Sutang scolded him calmly. Xiao Hui frowned. "Why is this child Xiao Rui so resentful? My uncle said that children with strong resentments will have a miserable life, and only cute children will be happy." He said to Li Rui, "This is not good." Li Rui glared at him fiercely, "Get out." Xiaoling couldn't stand others scolding her child. She looked at Sutang and her son. "Didn't Li Lei tell you? He invited me to live here a long time ago. For the convenience of me and Xiao Hui, he put this whole thing together. The entire space on the first floor has been opened up. I can live as long as I like, it doesn't seem to be any of Sue's business." She spoke one word at a time, which was extremely harsh in Sutang's ears. However, Sutang still maintained his superficial self-restraint and smiled slightly. "Really? That's because I was reckless. In that case, Miss Ye, please stay and have dinner together. I'll go to the kitchen to cook." It was still the hostess's. She knew that Xiaoling couldn't compete with her when it came to cooking, because Xiaoling didn't know how to cook at all, and there was no way she could compare with herself, who was a top cook. Xiaoling felt that Sutang was a bit naive. Even to this extent, she still wanted to save face and regarded herself as the hostess. "But then I thought about it, how could I not be naive? Here, for a man with whom she has an unknown relationship, she competes with a scheming for the position of mistress." She suddenly felt uninterested. "You can cook it slowly for Li Lei," she said. "I have something else to do, so I'll leave first." Sutang didn't want her, so he sent her to the door with a smile. In the living room, the nanny has cleaned the carpet, ventilated it, and dispersed the smell. There is no trace of dirt stained by Li Rui. Mao was still lying lazily in the corner. When he saw them coming out, he walked up and nuzzled Xiao Hui reluctantly. Little master, I wonder when will I see you next?" Xiao Hui was also very reluctant to part with Mao, and said softly, "I'll come see you next time." As Xiaoling left, Xiaoling was in a low mood and didn't know why. "When I returned to my villa, I received a call from Li Lei. Xiaoling, why did you leave before I came out? After giving Xiao Rui a bath, I was dirty myself, so I went too because I was afraid that the smell would smell on you. I took a shower. I didn't mean to keep you waiting for so long." "Isn't Sutang cooking for you?" Xiaoling said lukewarmly. Li Lei chuckled softly. "Are you jealous?" In fact, what she didn't know was that when Li Lei came out of the shower and found that she was not there, he did not eat the food cooked by Sutang. Instead, he warned Sutang not to use him in the future. The kitchen in the house. Because now his house already has a mistress, and that is Xiaoling. Although Xiaoling still doesn't admit it, it is not convenient for other women to touch his things. "You're the one who's jealous." Xiaoling didn't know the hidden meaning, so she yelled unhappily and hung up the phone. At night, I tossed and turned and couldn't sleep. Xiao Shaowai moved to her bed and slept uneasily. At midnight, Xiaoling suddenly noticed something was wrong with the little child in her arms, and her body temperature was alarmingly high. She fumbled to turn on the desk lamp, but she was shocked when she saw that Xiao Hui had large and small red rashes all over his hands, feet, and face. Skin. The little child had his eyes closed and was mumbling nonsense. Xiaowai, Xiaowai, Xiaoling shouted twice. The child did not wake up, but frowned in his sleep, looking uncomfortable. Xiaoling was really panicked this time, so she quickly got out of bed and woke up the nanny. The nanny came over to see the child and was shocked. "Miss, the young master may have an acute rash too. You should send him to the hospital for emergency treatment as soon as possible. The child is young and cannot afford to be delayed. He is prone to accidents." Xiaoling randomly wrapped the child in 2 pieces of clothing and hurried downstairs. Little Xiaowai's lips were chapped and changed color. He looked haggard and the red rash on his body looked scary. "Can he make it to the hospital?" Xiaoling asked anxiously. The nanny has no way to answer this question, but the young master looks really dangerous. By the way, the nanny suddenly thought of something and said, "Isn't there a doctor at Mr. Pei's house next door? I think Mrs. Wang is fine. The child is so sick. Why don't we trouble him to accompany us to the hospital? It would be nice to have someone to take care of you along the way." Xiaoling also remembered at this time that there was a family doctor living in Pei Xian's house. The matter was urgent, and she didn't care whether to disturb or avoid suspicion. She asked the nanny to knock on the door of Pei Xian's villa. She carried the child to the garage, put the child in the car, and drove the car to stop in front of Pei Xian's house. The nanny arrived before her and had already explained the situation to the people on night watch in the Pei family. Xiaoling was sitting in the car and saw the lights in the Pei family villa turning on one by one, and the faint sound of voices could be heard. She was so anxious that she stared at the door, and the seconds seemed like years. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 697. Chapter 697. Who is this child? Finally, I saw someone coming out of the door. The leader was a tall man wearing a long trench coat. He walked hurriedly to her car, bent down and asked, "How is the child?" Xiaoling saw his face clearly. "Pei Xian, help me. Xiao Hui has a rash, and I don't know why. Is Dr. Wang here?" Pei Xian said, "Don't worry, I will accompany you to the hospital." "Dr. Wang will go too," he said, opening the door of her cab. "You go to the back seat with the child, and I will drive." Now was not the time to be polite, so she hurried to the back seat of the car and picked up Xiao Hui. Xiao Hui's body seemed to be even hotter. The rashes appeared quickly and urgently, and they looked so dense and scary. Dr. Wang also got in the car and sat in the back seat with her. He also brought a small first aid kit, showed it to the child, and said, "Ms. Yeah, the child is probably allergic to something. We need to find the source of the allergy. We have given him simple first aid treatment, don't worry if he can make it to the hospital." Xiaoling felt a little relieved. "Drive faster," she said to Pei Xian. "How long does it take to get to the hospital?" Pei Xian's car drove fast and steady, and his voice was very calm. "We're almost there. I asked the nanny to contact the hospital before I left. Several experts are on the way and can consult the child." She was slightly startled, and then she remembered that the Pei family was familiar with the hospital and could use their privileges. The road in the middle of the night was silent, and the boundless darkness spread. However, in this darkness, her heart suddenly calmed down, as if she had found support. In a trance, she felt like she was back in her childhood, when she was helpless and panicked. Only this godlike man was her eternal anchor. She held Xiaowai in her arms and calmed down. He arrived at the hospital soon. Sure enough, as Pei Xian said, Yuan Fang was ready to receive treatment. When Xiao Hui was pushed into the consulting room, several experts also arrived one after another. They gave the child a comprehensive examination and then told Xiaoling, "Ms. Yeah, we will first put the child into the sterile room for desensitization treatment. The allergen examination will take a while, so please be patient." So, she waited in the corridor outside the ward. Pei Xian accompanied her, took off his long windbreaker and put it on her shoulders. Only then did she realize that she was wearing only a thin pair of pajamas when she went out, and the wind in the corridor made her feel cold. She looked up at Pei Xian and said, "Thank you." Pei Xian comforted her, "The child will be fine. He is my lifeblood," she said. The two people waited outside the door for several hours, until the sky turned white. The doctor opened the door and came out and said, "The allergen has been identified and it is chemical fiber allergy. This is a very rare allergy, and ordinary contact with man-made fiber clothing will cause serious consequences." Xiaoling's head suddenly exploded. "What did you say?" She thought of her dead child who was also allergic to chemical fibers. How could it be such a coincidence? Pei Xian's expression also changed slightly. "Allergic to chemical fibers? Doctor, could I be mistaken?" "That's right," said the doctor. "We don't joke about things like this." Xiaoling's body was shaky, and she didn't know what was wrong with her. It seemed as if there was some voice that was about to come out in her heart, but it was too vague for her to catch. Pei Xian naturally supported her and sat down on the chair. His heart was filled with turmoil. Unlike Xiaoling, he knew very clearly that her biological child did not die, but was taken away by Xiaomoyan. Recalling that Xiaowai often said "uncle said," Pei Xian suddenly made a bold guess in his heart. Could it be that Ye Xiaowai is Pei Xiaowai? Is he her biological son? His expression gradually became gloomy. "How is he now?" Suddenly, he heard Xiaoling ask dryly. "The situation is quite stable and the allergy is under control, but hospitalization is needed," the doctor said. Xiaoling nodded. She thought about it carefully and roughly understood why Xiaowai suddenly developed an allergy to chemical fibers. In her home, the children usually wear pure natural fabrics, and the nanny at home also wears the work clothes she prepared, which are also all natural fabrics. There is no access to chemical fibers. But, what about yesterday? When she followed Li Lei into the car, she remembered that Xiao Hui was very close to Reporter Sunday. It was probably the material of Reporter Sun's clothes that he came into contact with at that time, which caused the allergy. Her heart twitched. This allergen was so common. What should the child do when she grows up? Thinking wildly, she also felt that this child was so similar to her dead child. Was it a kind of fate? Maybe God saw how pitiful she was after losing her child, so he specially sent Xiao Xiaowai to comfort her. She suddenly stood up, went to find the attending physician, and said, "I want to test the child's blood type." The attending doctor was a little confused. "Why? I adopted this child," Xiaoling said. "I don't even know his blood type. If I encounter any danger in the future, I don't know how to give first aid. Why not take advantage of this time to understand some basic data, clear?" The attending doctor thought it made sense and said, "We will check the child and let you know the results when they come out." Xiaoling thanked the attending doctor. Pei Xian heard it from the side and his expression became darker. He stayed with her and stayed with the child. One day later, the child was transferred from the sterile ward to the general ward. The rash on his body receded as quickly as it appeared, and it had almost dissipated. However, he cannot be discharged from the hospital yet and must be observed. Xiaoling was tortured all day and night. She was too frightened and couldn't sleep well. At this time, seeing that the child was fine, she finally couldn't hold on any longer and fell asleep beside the child's bed. Pei Xian picked her up, opened a room in a high-end hotel near the hospital, put her in, and ordered people to take good care of her. "Go back to the ward by yourself and ask the doctor, have the blood test results come out." The doctor said, "It is a very rare NSU type. This child must be protected, otherwise it will be difficult to replenish the blood in time if he loses too much blood. Pei Xian's face tightened slightly. He was probably this child. He was allergic to chemical fibers, had Nsu blood type, and was of the same age. How could there be such a coincidence in this world? He thanked the doctor and said, "Monsieur, I hope you will keep it a secret." The doctor was startled and said, "This blood type is very dangerous. It would be better to let the guardians know as soon as possible." Pei Xian said, "Tell her it's type O." The doctor was surprised, "Sir." Pei Xian glanced at him, with endless pressure in his eyes. "I remember that the next vice president's election is just around the corner, right? Professor Chen might as well focus on the selection. Maybe there will be surprises." After a pause, "If you are half-hearted, I'm afraid you are not a qualified professor." End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 698. Chapter 698, A Journey Through the Gates of Hell. Professor Chen felt a chill in his heart. He was very aware of Pei Xian's energy and knew that the man in front of him had full authority to influence the selection results. For the sake of so-called fairness and justice, give up an easy future and offend a big shot that you can't afford to offend. He didn't think for too long and quickly made a decision. "Mr. Pei, don't worry, I know what to do." Pei Xian showed a look of approval. He walked into the ward and looked down at the little boy who was sleeping on the bed with a sling bottle. The child looks very well behaved. The baby's fat cheeks are plump and tender, making people lovable. If you look carefully, you can see that she actually looks like Xiaoling, with the same delicate eyebrows, small and round nose tip and earlobes. If you take a closer look, you can see that even Li Lei has some features, but they are not obvious. Pei Xian is pretending that something is wrong. He wonders when Xiaoling will find out the truth. The red indicator light on the bottle flashes, indicating that the medicine is almost finished. Pei Xian's hand moved to the switch, subconsciously preparing to turn off the infusion line. Suddenly, his hand paused slightly. If the bottle is not closed, air will enter the child's blood vessels after the medicine is infused, and the child will die. Such a way of killing people is so subtle that it can be said to be a medical accident. His mind gradually became gloomy as he watched the few potions dripping slowly. However, the child's sleeping face is so beautiful, as pure as a little angel. Pei Xian suddenly couldn't imagine how painful a look would appear on this face that looked like Xiaoling when air entered his blood vessels. Just thinking about it makes my heart feel like a knife. The potion drops drop by drop, getting less and less. Pei Xian looked at Xiao Hui expressionlessly. This was the best opportunity to kill him. If he was not killed this time, it would be inconvenient to cause similar accidents in the future. Pei Xian knew very well that the child's mother's family was the Xia family, which was such a terrifying reclusive family. If this child died in a strange way and the Xia family investigated, even the Pei family would not be able to withstand the overwhelming anger. To kill or not to kill? There was not much time left for him to think about it. 1 drop, 2 drops, 3 drops. The last few drops of potion fell quietly. At the last moment, Pei Xian reached out and closed the infusion line. "Your fortune is good," he said to the child on the bed in a low voice, as if talking to himself, turned around, and left the ward. In this life, he has never killed anyone. Standing at the height of a business tycoon like him, who doesn't have blood on his hands. However, facing this child, he still couldn't make a move. Maybe he remembered the little baby dancing and smiling at him many years ago. Maybe he remembered the ecstasy that seemed to be in a dream when Xiaoling timidly told him the news of pregnancy even further back. Or maybe it's just a discovery of conscience. In short, he left and never looked back. The ward was empty again. The little Xiaowai didn't know when he opened his eyes and looked at the infusion pipe that Pei Xian had turned off quietly, a little lost in thought. In the evening, Xiaoling came to see him. Xiao Shaowai, I'm so sorry, she said to the child, my sister just wanted to take a nap, but she didn't expect that the whole day would pass after she slept. How do you feel now? Are you feeling better? Shaowai nodded obediently, it's much better, sister, don't worry. He didn't tell this stupid sister that when she was away in the morning, he had already walked back and forth to the gate of hell. Xiaoling peeled the fruit for him, using a very clumsy technique with lots of bumps. Received a call from Li Lei midway. He asked her where she was and said that fresh fruits and vegetables had been sent from his villa and he wanted to bring them to her. Xiaoling was worried about Xiao Hui and briefly told him about Xiao Hui's illness. Forget about fruits and vegetables, I'm not in the mood to deal with these. Li Lei then realized that such a big thing had happened after not seeing each other for a day. He asked Xiaoling, which hospital? Xiaoling didn't want to say it at first, but Xiao Hui shouted next to him, I want Uncle Li to come and see me. Xiaoling glanced at the child and gave Li Lei the address of the hospital. Li Lei came over quickly and brought several boxes of delicious meals. These are all made with fresh ingredients from the villa, he said. If your child is not feeling well, he should eat some nutritious food to replenish his health. Shaowai liked his craftsmanship very much and pestered Xiaoling to open it. The three of them spread out a table in the ward and were eating when Pei Ziyan walked in. This tall man also held a meal in his hand. He glanced at the scene in the room and laughed at himself, I seem to be late. Xiaoling felt very sad when she thought of Pei Ziyan's busy schedule during the day when Xiao Hui was sick. After hesitating, she asked tentatively, let's eat together. Pei Ziyan smiled lightly, okay. He really didn't see anyone outside, so he dragged a chair casually and sat down next to Xiaoling. Li Lei looked at him with an evil expression. The two men's eyes met in mid-air, with the faint smell of gunpowder smoke and sparks. Pei Ziyan asked Xiaoling in a gentle voice as if nothing had happened, how is little Shaowai's condition? You came to me in the middle of the night last night wearing only pajamas. It's really worrying. Li Lei's brows twitched. In the middle of the night? In pajamas? Looking for Pei Ziyan? He reached out and took a big chopstick dish into Xiaoling's bowl, you don't know how to call me in the middle of the night. Why bother Mr. Pei? Xiaoling, stay with me so that I can take care of you. Xiaoling has a headache. These two people are here again. Can't they just rest for a while? She gritted her teeth and said, shut up and eat. She seemed to be kicking anyone out if they continued to be verbose. The two grown men obediently shut up. Even though they were usually making trouble outside, when facing a petite girl like Xiaoling, they seemed to be obedient. After all, no one wants to be loved by their beloved in front of their love rival. Kick the girl out. A few people have their own thoughts and eat. Xiao Hui is a bit picky about food. He only chooses the tenderest vegetable leaves and the softest meat to eat. His little cheeks bulge and he eats very attentively. Li Lei couldn't stand it anymore, so he took a large piece of fish meat without any chopsticks from under the little guy's chopsticks and gave it to Xiaoling. He didn't forget to teach the little guy, you are a man, let your sister eat it, you know. The little guy feels a little aggrieved, ugh, 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 two of them are taking care of his sister, so what's wrong with him just taking care of himself? Woohoo, that fish is so delicious. Xiaoling glared at Li Lei, he is a patient, she looked protective. Pei Ziyan smiled faintly and prepared dishes for Xiaoling and Xiao Hui in a leisurely manner, isn't it just a few bites of food? When you are discharged from the hospital, Uncle Pei will bring you meals. There will be as many different dishes as you want. Li Lei looked at him with an unkind expression. Pei Ziyan looked at Li Lei calmly. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 699. Chapter 699. Why is he here? Xiaoling suddenly regretted leaving these two people to eat. It was really troublesome. She finished the meal as quickly as possible, kicked both men out, and was finally satisfied. After closing the door to the ward, he breathed a long sigh of relief. I'm exhausted. Xiao Hui looked at her curiously. Sister, don't you like Uncle Pei and Uncle Li? Xiaoling was slightly startled. She didn't expect the child to ask this question. She thought for a while before answering. It's hard to guess Uncle Pei's thoughts. Little Xiaowai, stay away from him. He is too dangerous. Xiao Xiaowai nodded, feeling that she was not completely stupid. But, then why did sister ask Uncle Pei for help this time? Xiaoling smiled bitterly. Sister saw that you were sick, and she panicked. Moreover, Uncle Pei lives next door, and it is very close to the doctor from his house. After a long silence, she added, although Uncle Pei's thoughts are unpredictable, he is also very close. He's not a complete bad guy, and my sister owes him a lot of kindness. Xiao Hui blinked. He didn't understand these things. He only knew that his uncle had said that among the people who prevented his mother and father from being together, there was this uncle named Pei Zion. However, the uncle also said, Uncle Pei and your mother have a deep relationship, so you have to be especially careful. After being almost killed by Uncle Pei today, he suddenly understood what his uncle meant. He took Xiaoling's hand and asked in a sweet voice, Sister, what about Uncle Li? Do you like Uncle Pei more, or Uncle Li more? Thinking of the handsome mixed-race man, Xiaoling's face felt slightly hot. Which one does Xiaowai like? She asked the child. The little child said seriously, of course it's Uncle Li. He is good to his sister and has 2 cents at home. Xiaoling laughed. It turned out to be because of Mao. She rubbed the child's soft short hair again. Isn't our Maduanzi cute? Maduanzi is the stray cat she raised, and she often plays with Xiaowai. Cute. Xiao Xiaowai said, but that can't replace Mao. He blinked his eyes, soft and waxy, just like Uncle Pei. No matter how nice or gentle, he can't replace Uncle Li. Xiaoling was stunned by what she said. Once there was a lot of trouble in the sea, that person was him. No matter how gentle or outstanding there are, she will never forget him. She will never forget that in the storm, he said to her among the scattered peach blossoms on the edge of the cliff, Xiaoling, I love you. She closed her eyes slightly, feeling sour. In the following days, Xiao Hui still lived in the hospital, but Xiaoling could no longer accompany him. She is an artist, and although she is a queen, she still needs to make sure that she has to go out. A few days ago, she had made an appointment for a commercial performance in another city, and she had to attend. In that case, there would be no one to take care of Xiaowai. When Li Lei heard the news, he took the initiative and said, Xiaoling, let me take care of the child. Although you have a nanny, you are still a servant. If something happens, you can't make up your mind now. He is in a deep crisis. She felt that if she didn't take the initiative, she might be overtaken by her neighbor Pei Zion at some point. Xiaoling hesitated. Seeing how Li Lei raised Li Rui, she was worried about handing over the child to him. However, there seems to be no more suitable candidate around. Lin Yunan? Wei Shaiyin? Feng Kun? None of them had given birth to children and were inexperienced. Pei Zion? It would be better to let Li Lei take the lead. This business performance lasted a long time, and I had to leave for a full week. Xiaoling asked Xiaowai, can you let Uncle Li take care of you for a while? Xiao Hui clapped his little hands, okay, I like her Mao the most. Xiaoling looked at the child who didn't answer the question, and deeply lamented that the charm of a certain big boss was not as good as a pet. She went to Li Lei and agreed to his proposal, but there was an additional condition. Su Tang and Li Rui are not allowed to get close to my child. Now that Xiao Hui lives in the hospital, the two of them are not allowed to go even half a step closer to the hospital. Even if you are sick, you must go to another hospital, you hear me? Li Lei understood her mood and solemnly agreed. Also, Xiaoling still felt uneasy. Call me every day and tell me about Xiao Hui's situation. Li Lei couldn't get what he asked for, so he agreed repeatedly with a smile on his face. Xiaoling turned around and walked away. At the commercial performance venue, everyone worshipped her like a goddess. She is now extremely famous and her reputation is at its peak. If this industrial art and design exhibition wasn't of such a high standard, she wouldn't be able to invite her. She stayed at the venue for 3 days, singing a song every day and conducting a cross-border dialogue. It was a very easy job, and the rest of the time was spent on the phone with Li Lei. Li Lei told her about Xiaohui's situation in detail, including what the child likes to eat, his teeth are beginning to change, and the weather has been good these days. He planted a flower in the green belt of the hospital. There are many other various deeds. Xiaoling listened calmly. Two people rarely have such a quiet time, everything seems to be back to the past, when they were in the right relationship, watching the sky and the earth in the seaside villa, watching the ebb and flow of the tide, and cuddling together leisurely. She was in a trance, like an illusion, as if she and him had become a family of 3, just like ordinary people enjoying their children and gossiping about everyday things. What a pity, Xiaohui turned out to be type O blood. When she learned Xiaohui's blood type, her first reaction was disappointment. She was really disappointed. How she hoped that a miracle would happen and God would send the dead biological child back to her. However, the second reaction was to blame oneself, and then to be happy. Fortunately, Xiaohui has type O blood, which is such a common blood type, so he can get timely treatment even if he encounters any danger. How could she expect Xiaohui to have a rare blood type for her own selfish reasons? That's too dangerous. With complicated emotions, she told Li Lei to take good care of the child. At the end, he hesitated for a moment, and then told Li Lei to take good care of himself. You are alone in the country. Take care of your health. Don't. She originally wanted to say that he had a special blood type and there must be nothing wrong with him that wouldn't allow for a blood transfusion, but she thought it was unlucky and stopped. Li Lei seemed to understand what she meant and smiled. I will take good care of you, don't worry. She then hung up the phone. At the business performance site, people were coming and going. Outside the huge glass window, many visitors were asking, where is Ye Xingling? I heard that she is performing here these days. I just brought my friends to see her. I don't know when her performance will be. This world is prosperous, and she only hopes that the people she cares about will be well. However, this small expectation still turned out to be unexpected. When she received the call from Wei Shaiyin, she had just finished singing a song and left the stage amidst thunderous applause from the crowd. Wei Shaiyin said, I'm right outside your lounge. She was very surprised. Why is Wei Shaiyin here? End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weiniang. Chapter 700. Chapter 700 Family. Putting on her sunglasses, she went to find Wei Shaiyin. In the long and silent corridor, under the dim light, the man's slender figure stood alone, with every button of his spotless white shirt buttoned extremely rigorously. This man has a clean and sharp look that is different from Li Lei and Pei Ziyan. Xiaoling went up to him and said hello, away. Wei Shaiyin turned to look at her. Xiaoling. Are the activities here over? Today's is over, she said, there will be another one the day after tomorrow. Why, come to me if you need anything. Wei Shaiyin said, the boss sent me to pick you up. Xiaohui had an accident. He fell suddenly while riding in the elevator. He was injured and had an operation and a blood transfusion. The blood type is wrong. He is being rescued. The hospital issued a critical illness notice. These words were like a bolt from the blue, shocking Xiaoling so much that she couldn't recover. She didn't know how she left with Wei Shaiyin. He took her to the top of the skyscraper and got on the helicopter, feeling confused. He clasped his fingers in front of his chest, praying in his heart that Xiao Hui would be safe and sound. The helicopter was mobilized by Wei Shaiyin with Li Lei's privileges and flew directly to the hospital. She got off the plane and staggered to Xiao Hui's ward. The door of the operating room was closed tightly, and the emergency light had not been extinguished. "What's going on now?" she asked the doctor who came to accompany her after hearing the news. The doctor said, the child's condition was not good. First, when the elevator fell sharply, his internal organs were injured and he suffered massive bleeding. Then he had surgery. We transfused the child with type O blood, only to find that the blood type was wrong. By this time, the child had already developed hemolysis. The vital signs are unstable and we are doing our best to rescue him. Hemolytic reaction? She didn't understand these medical terms, but Wei Shaiyin looked stern on the side. "Don't you check the blood type before transfusion? Hemolytic reaction can kill people, why are you so careless?" The doctor had a grimace on his face. "We just did a blood type test on the child not long ago, and it turns out he has blood type O." He didn't know that the attending doctor had secretly changed the blood type conclusion, and it was baffling. Xiaoling was worried and asked the doctor in a trembling voice, "How sure are you?" "Frankly speaking, Chengdu." Wei Shaiyin glared at the doctor sternly. The doctor quickly changed his words, 30%. Xiaoling felt cold all over. She rarely felt this way, as if something important in her life was about to leave her. "Please save him," she begged the doctor. "I can pay as much money as you want." Doctors are also in pain, so where is the problem of money? The child was seriously injured when the elevator plummeted. Coupled with the hemolytic reaction, it would be difficult to imagine his life. If we investigate seriously, the hospital should be fully responsible for both accidents. As a doctor, he is also very hard-working. Okay. He comforted Xiaoling with a few words, but his words were empty and had no effect. Xiaoling's mind was in a state of confusion. She couldn't understand why Xiao Hui, who clearly had type O blood, suddenly had the wrong blood type. Did the hospital make a mistake during the first test? A fatal mistake. Is she being too lonely and a widower? Not only did she kill her biological child, but she also had to endure this adopted son? Even such a small probability event will happen to children? She was worried and waited anxiously outside the operating room, but she couldn't do anything to help her. She could only blame herself. She blamed herself. Why should she go to other places for commercial performances at this time? If he stayed with Xiao Xiaowai, would nothing happen to him? By the way, where is Li Lei? Why isn't Li Lei here? He promised her to take good care of the child. Now that something happened to the child, where is he? She raised her head and asked this question. "Boss." "He's also in the operating room this time." The person who answered her was Wei Shaiyin. "Xiaowai's true blood type has been detected. It's the same type as boss, Nsu. There is no reserve in the blood bank. He needs a blood transfusion. Only the boss can save him, so the boss is also in the operating room now." Wei Shaiyin said, and added, "Before entering the operating room, he ordered me to pick you up." No wonder he couldn't appear in front of her in person. It turned out to be to save the child. She didn't know how much blood would be consumed to rescue Xiao Hui, but she could imagine that it was definitely not a small amount. Could Li Lei hold on? She was originally only worried about Xiao Hui, but now she is worried about both of them. Hope they are all safe. They will be lucky, Wei Shaiyin comforted her. I have mobilized the most cutting-edge experts in biological sciences from my family to fully assist in the treatment. The Wei family's biopharmaceutical group is a behemoth, and many experts in the family are even bigger than the most internationally renowned doctors are also highly skilled. However, when Xiaoling heard what he said, she didn't feel much relieved. How can she be safe when the lives of two loved ones are at stake? Her hands unknowingly tightened on the amulet around her neck. It was the same one that Li Lei gave away half of his blood to give to her. At that time, he dedicated his blood for her, and now, for her child, he dedicated his precious and rare blood again. Xiaoling suddenly realized how good he was to her. Even if Sutang is there, even if there are so many people who interfere with her, when her life and death are at stake, this man is the only one who will protect her at all costs. And her children. Her nose was a little sore. Wei Shaiyin was still comforting her. Both of them will definitely survive, as members of my family are here. Just because he fled from his family's terrifying high-tech biochemical industry does not mean that he does not know the power of his family. Is there any place in the world that can pull people back from the hands of death? If the Wei family believes in second place, no one dares to believe in first place. Xiaoling's thoughts were confused, but he reminded her of something. Yes, family. She fumbled, took out her mobile phone, and called her brother. Hey, brother. She cried, something happened to Xiaowai. Li Lei is giving him a blood transfusion. I'm so worried about the two of them. What should I do? Is there any way you can save them? Over the years, I don't have much contact with my family, but I always think of my family at critical moments. She had already reported it to her family when she adopted Xiaowai. In this regard, Xia Moyan once said lightly, he and you are very suitable, as long as you like it. Now, something happened to Xiaowai, and the only person she could turn to was her brother. Aren't you very powerful? Can you cast a spell to pray or something to keep them both safe? She prayed. On the other end of the phone, Xia Moyan's expression remained as calm as ever. They will be fine. Really, her brother said it so lightly, which made her feel uneasy. Xia Moyan raised his eyes slightly and looked at a magic circle in the middle of the quaint house. Xiaoling still didn't know that this accident was inseparable from his actions. How could he not know whether his life was in danger? End of this chapter.